things can only be expressed through words and letters because names exist prior to words. Similarly, people can only be aware of numbers because numbers have names. Words, letters, numbers, and names all fall within the comprehensive category of names. Everything, the universe, countries, society, ethnicity, religion, education, learning, is constructed from names and cannot exist without them. Therefore, our world is fundamentally made up of names. The same goes for the self, ego. After a baby is born, it is named, and this name is repeatedly sent to the seat of life in its brain as a name sound waves with specific wavelength produced by people's voices. They combine and transform into the baby's self-ego. This means that everyone's self-ego was at first nothing more than a name sound. Thus, this world is one of names. It is clear that everyone, when they comprehend their country's name, China, Japan, and others, they are conscious of themselves as the citizens of that country, Chinese, Japanese, and others. However, there was a case when a group of people who suddenly went from being Chinese to Japanese. In 1945, World War II ended along with Japan's defeat. At the time, there were approximately 800,000 private Japanese citizens living in Manchuria, the northeastern part of China. When the war ended, they found themselves amidst in the chaos, hoping to survive and return to Japan. Some parents with infants believed that it would be impossible to bring their children back to Japan alive, and therefore gave them to Chinese couples. They did so in tears, asking the new parents to try to nurture their baby's development. These children turned 71 this year and are now living as fully integrated Chinese. However, approximately 20 years ago, their aging Chinese adoptive parents told them that their biological parents were Japanese. When the children heard this, they transformed from being Chinese to Japanese. After that, they were conscious as Japanese, therefore had no choice but to act accordingly. Subsequently, several children managed to go to Japan to look for their biological parents and relatives, whilst encountering many difficulties in the process. Two important things can be learned from this historical event. First, DNA can prove their genetic origin, in this case, the identity of their parents. Their egos were formed during the 71 years, approximately, spent with their Chinese parents. During this time, their egos were formed based on the sources of nourishment: 1, words; 2, letters; 3, numbers; and 4, names in China. All animals have offspring who inherit their DNA. However, the time and environment wherein children are raised and in which their egos are formed is more significant than factors present at birth. The second important point is that DNA does not contain information about ethnicity or nationality, which means all 7.3 billion people on Earth cannot prove their nationalities or ethnicities objectively and scientifically using DNA. We recognize and begin to play the role of our ego as we learn words, letters, numbers, and names. In this process, we also play the role of Japanese people. People around the world become aware and learn to play the roles that come with the names of their countries and ethnicities as part of the process of ego formation. That means no one is born with an absolute ethnicity or nationality that is determined objectively or scientifically. However, in today's world, we have ethnic and national wars, which seems to have no end. This mechanism has not yet been resolved. If this mechanism was to be resolved and spread through the process of education, the future of the world would have a potential to graduate from the three walls, in particular the wall of nationality and ethnicity. In the period of 30 years, by faithfully educating young people about this, we may come to understand that Homo sapiens are the same across the world and is just one species. We may also understand that this one species learned to recognize different nations and races whilst forming the ego and having disputes arise while performing those roles. With the time span of 30 years, it is possible to transform the way of thinking to understand that we are actually one. The next theme is, what are people? What are human beings? A person named Susumu Tonegawa said, the ultimate research goal of life science is to answer the question of what are human beings. Professor Bukkotsu Yamamoto said, all religions and sciences are pursuing the question of what are human beings, but the answer has not yet been found. Professor Takafumi Matsui said, whether natural science or social science, philosophy or literature, the essence of all of these is the eternal and immutable question of what are human beings? The nature of human beings is an even more important topic for humanity than the nature of the ego. These scholars are saying that all kinds of knowledge and religions aim to answer the question of what human beings are, which is their final goal. The existing types of knowledge in the world, religion. What's more, they say that whether philosophy, literature, natural science, and social science all ask and seek an answer to the question of what human beings are. For example, suppose 10 elementary school students are here. Even if you let the 10 children to discuss what elementary school students are, they wouldn't need to do so because they are role-playing as elementary school students and having fun. However, in addition to the importance of the question, what are human beings, these great teachers also said that the answer must be somewhere. That is to say, there is a big possibility that everyone here is not a human being. If we were human beings, the question is irrelevant, because we would act as human beings. However, we need this question because we are not human beings. If we are not human, then what are we? Don't you resist such an idea? If we are not human beings, then what are we? You probably want me to hurry up and answer. Being told that we are not human beings, what would happen? There actually is a hint for this topic of what are people. Number 13 has a hint regarding the answer to this question. Person, human being, is a collective term describing all 7.3 billion members. On the other hand, the term self, ego, applies to each of them as individuals. Therefore, person, human being, and self, ego, are not equivalent. For example, if we can use the term person when asked what kind of world is the world of people, it is made up of the 60 trillion cells in everyone's body. DNA is structured one by one in this cell. That DNA contains 100% of the information necessary for duplicating that human body. However, the hair functions from less than 1% of the information. While active, the rest of the information is frozen, asleep. The skin, nails, both play a role based on less than 1% of each of the DNA's information. The different DNA and cells play their respective roles. While 60 trillion cells function magnificently as one, they function as an incredible work of art. Likewise, the future, all 7.3 billion people on Earth will reach harmony and put an end to conflict. Individuals fulfill their roles and come to function smoothly while helping one another. Then, for the first time, it can be said that the world is the world of people, the community of people. Right now, we are not there yet. Humanity is at the developmental level of only just having fully formed each 1/7.3 billionth of an ego. So, we can say it is the world of egos, the world of 7.3 billion disconnected selves. But we are here today because it was necessary. We cannot graduate to the world of people without passing through world of egos. This is not about denying the ego. The ego is an important and valuable raw material that we must transit through. But in the future, we want to be a world of people, a community of people. What was born was a physical human baby. After birth and named, their name was sent repeatedly to the seat of life in the baby's brain as the name sound wave of a specific wavelength when called out by human voices. Over time, the name fuses and changes, transforming into the self, ego. In this process, the body born as a baby becomes name, family, given, self, before anyone notices. Also, the body's birthday is then substituted for the birthday of the name self. Then, around the age of 5 or 6, they receive the title of person, human being, and play the role of person, human being. However, they were not a person, human being. To expose and examine the true form of the person, human being, the name, which is what one is called and nothing like the true form, transforms, then settles in the core of the mind of the human body as its ruler, playing the role of person, human being. This world is not the world of people, human beings, but a world of selves and egos that merely adopt the name and role of people, human beings. This summary is a statement of the first half of this talk. If you can understand the first half a little, you should be able to have a general understanding of the statement. Life and the core of life. In Japanese, there are the characters seimei. Sei and mei, the character for living and life. The meanings of these two characters are completely different. Sei is the same as that of ikimono, or living things. Sei of a living thing can be seen. For example, all organisms, animals, plants, these are all visible, right? Things that are alive. For example, everyone here today, you are all certainly visible. You are alive. This is the sei part. If you step outside after the lecture and get into a traffic accident and take your last breath, what is the difference between a dead body and one that is alive right now? Right now you can see, you can breathe, you have a body temperature, you have a pulse, you can think, you can speak. However, a body that is dead cannot do any of these things. It cannot see. There is no body temperature and no breath or pulse. It cannot think. However, from an atomic level perspective of which the body is composed, in this body there is a certain percentage of water, calcium, iron, zinc, and carbon. This living body and its dead version has the exact same components and mass. They have the same components and mass, but one is alive. The other is dead. What is the difference when the components and mass are the same? This is where we can say that the mechanism of mei, of energy, takes effect. Since the mechanism of mei is inseparable, you are able to stay alive now. The separation leads to death. All things born are given life and death. It comes as a set. All living things have a death. On the other hand, mei is an invisible working of the entire universe. The workings of energy, which includes all of life and death, is the workings of mei. Sei and mei are drastically different. The workings of this mei, the mei workings of the whole universe's energy, the origins of the workings, the nucleus of the center, the nucleus of mei. That is substance, the ultimate substance. We can even say that it is the creator of the entire universe. The core of mei is the substance. While grasping this concept, please look at number 15. Workings that contain the myriad phenomena of the entire universe cannot be named. However, if we are to name it, it will be mei, the driving force behind the lives of living things. What made life what it is? The name above life is a unique name. That name, X, was itself the core of life, the ultimate substance. Simply, it's impossible to put a name to the workings of the ultimate substance. We cannot name it. We just call it workings. There is only one name for the thing beyond life that made life what it is. That name, X, was itself the core of life, the ultimate substance. Now I am explaining the ultimate substance. Let's think about what this ultimate substance will be if we were to name it. Please think about this question. Of all living things and species, the only one that can name things is Homo sapiens. In short, there isn't anything named by animals. In the entire universe, Homo sapiens can name everything through the medium of their bodies. Only the human body is endowed with the nucleus of life. Evidently, the human body could be called the physical nucleus of life. Among all organisms, only Homo sapiens are endowed with this. This is not something visible. Perhaps fragments of the creator of the entire universe, the ultimate substance, is embedded in the center of the brain. How much of a fragment? It is 1 in 7.3 billion. 1 in 7.3 billion would be about 10 zeros after the decimal place. You might not know it's there. You may not be aware, but what I'm saying is this fragment was embedded and arranged only into the human body. Only Homo sapiens can name things, because only the human form is endowed with the nucleus of life. This is why we can express the human body as the physical nucleus of life. In that human form, the name is given as a slice of the life. This refers to all our names. Your names have all been designated, and the self that sticks to the seat of life, the thing that transforms the name, is also directly connected to the life. Put simply, after your bodies were born, they were given names, and after several months of being called those names repeatedly, those specific sound waves eventually adhered to the seat of life inside the brain as an embodiment. Then yourselves were formed, becoming the seeds of your egos. Therefore, all names are a part of the slice of life. It is a slice of the workings of May. Names are called a slice of life. The self that sticks to the seat of life and transforms the name is also directly connected to life. We would not be able to use words if we weren't connected to May. We also wouldn't be able to write letters and use numbers. We wouldn't be able to give names. Naming gives life. This is the secret gift given only to the human form. In short, since we cannot live without May, there is death. This means if we die, we cannot use words and letters. Finally, the secret talent is given only to the human form, the ability to give names to everything. Why does this naming give life? This is the fragment of ultimate substance which is only embedded in the human body. Even if it's untrue, you may still question. Because it is at the 10th or so decimal place, it may exist. Maybe that's just how it is. This is the secret talent, the hidden ability only human bodies have. All things are named. The creative source of all these names, as well as the naming of words, letters, numbers, and names, is May. All names, words, letters, and numbers are variations of May. They are fragments of life. In short, each of your bodies is the nucleus of May. These bodies are the nuclei of May because the nucleus of May has been designed. It is called the core body. Each of your egos, the protagonists of those bodies, is also a fragment of May that was made through the naming of the fragment. Thus, the body is also a physical core of May. The ego is also a fragment of May. Those bodies and egos freely use words, letters, numbers, and names to further build the ego. If you trace back through history, words, letters, numbers, and names were each created by human bodies as the need arose. However, dictionaries do not mention when they were discovered or created, and by whom. They surfaced unexpectedly through some human body, became words, letters, numbers, and names as variations of that great energy, May, of the entire universe. They gushed forth and surfaced in history through Homo sapiens, according to their needs, and now used freely to further mold the ego. The human body is the body of May, and each of your egos is also a fragment of May. The words, letters, numbers, and names needed to further build each ego are also variations of May. This means that everything exists in the structure of May. Why is this structure necessary? And how did it become this way? Comes next. Before unraveling the structure of May together, we need to dig further down into the topic of names and naming. Currency and Stagnation by the Japanese philosopher Shozo Omori. Long ago, a Chinese foreign exchange student came to the University of Oxford. The professor gave him a tour of the campus. The exchange student later said, "I was shown different colleges, libraries, and dormitories, but where exactly is the University of Oxford?" The University of Oxford that he was shown were the campuses, lecture and dining halls, and dormitories. But it would be wrong to say that that was the University of Oxford. The University of Oxford has a history of over 100 years. The name of the university is worth its 100-year history, including its graduates and professors. Every aspect combined is the University of Oxford. Even now, there are many students and professors. What's more, they are moving. They come and go. It's impossible to express it all in just the name University of Oxford. Therefore, what he was shown was just a small part of the University of Oxford. There are also soft parts that aren't visible. In the history of over 100 years, there is an enormous soft part. Since it is included in the University of Oxford, it cannot be understood in just one word. Therefore, names can give an image of a general concept, but do not express the thing itself. Likewise, I am called by the name Nagasena. Nagasena is only a name. There is no real self that must be called by that name, just as there is no real form to the chariot which Your Majesty King Mirinda rode on. King Mirinda visited the sage Nagasena on a chariot. He asked the king, "How did you get here?" "I rode a chariot." "What is a chariot?" "The horse, the track, this box?" Not all parts that lead to the chariot being called a chariot is present. All parts, including the history of the invention, is the chariot. Therefore, the reality of the thing called chariot is not truly expressed. Likewise, Nagasena is just a name. There is no substance. This is what he is saying. Therefore, probably these two sentences are filled with a lot of philosophy. This definition of name was taken from a Japanese dictionary. Names are surface forms, surface designations. Namely, it does not express substance. Names follow or are secondary to the true seed, truth. The term true seed, truth, is taken from the Japanese kanji word guest of honor. Names follow or are secondary to the true seed. They are not reality. Names are not reality. They are at best surface forms, surface designations. Everything in this world is made up of names. Everything in the universe has names and are recognized. But those are just names and are different from real substance. This is the general idea. It's an approximation. Names are, that is. After understanding that, referring back to the previously mentioned world, the 7.3 billion bodies on this planet, these are the nucleus of May. Each of those 7.3 billion are their own protagonists and egos. These are also fragments of May. Each ego is destined to further develop while using the variations of May, the words, letters, numbers, and names. The question of what meaning there is to this structure is the duty of the ego. The world as the name palace. The present world is the world of names. Everything has a name in this world and is recognizable. In the present world, that is the name palace, names use names and pursue questions. Therefore, the results are also only just names. In other words, all the academic topics studied by researchers are only made up of names, right? Since they search using those names, the results will also just be names. Names are formed and borrowed. They're not real. This is the point. These are all fictitious things made of nothing but superficial names and are only temporary. Because this world is not real and only temporary, all of its politics, economics, sciences, religions cannot be entirely at peace. Everything in this world is in the world of names. Nothing can exist without a name. If humanity had no name, it would just be another organism. Living things survive relying on instincts, animal instincts. They approach the location of food, and when sense danger, they escape. If they can get by in this way, they can survive. But whether the 7.3 billion of us in this world can get by on instinct, it is impossible. Humankind can live in the world of names. This world of names is not real and is only borrowed. Everything in this world, politics, economics, academics, and religion, come into existence based on names. In this world of names, there is no perfection. The world of names exists for a reason. The reason is that this will be necessary for moving to the next stage. If everything in the present temporary